Hello and welcome to the latest in my video series. This time we're going to focus on key quotations for the themes in A Christmas Carol. But before we crack on with that, just a reminder to head on over to mrhonline.co.uk. That's mrhonline.co.uk. I am Mr. H, where there's a load of videos on a wide range of topics for your English GCSE, Lang and Lit syllabus. Doesn't matter what exam board you're following. There's loads of videos over there. So head on over there, do the right thing. Okay, so let's crack on with key quotations for the themes in A Christmas Carol. So I've picked the main themes, and I seem to have a line down my thing from the sun. I've picked the key themes and selected relevant quotations from throughout the novella, so you don't have to. Okay, so the main theme, Dickens' primary message, underlying message is for change and redemption. Okay, the main character, if someone like Scrooge can mend their ways, then so too can anybody. And more to the point, if society is going to improve for all and become fairer and a more just place, then we need to change. Okay, so quotations before Scrooge's change and redemption. What's Christmas to you but a time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer? Okay, so not only does this reflect Scrooge's dismissive attitude towards Christmas, it implies that unless you're making money, whatever it is you're doing is pointless. Hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel ever struck warming fire. Hard and sharp as flint is a simile. Rock, hard, unwelcoming, maybe even potentially dangerous. Ever struck warming fire. Motif of fire to represent a lack of warmth in Scrooge. Okay, you follow the theme or the motif of fire throughout, and you'll see, look at when it's referenced by Dickens and see what the context is and which character it's connected to. No one ever stopped Scrooge in the street with a, "My dear Scrooge, how are you?" So he was renowned within Victorian society as being a miserly old wretch. All this satisfied Scrooge, for now he could be alone with his money. Harsh comparison against the description of everyone else enjoying family and friends for company when Scrooge only has his money. And he may well have been satisfied. Was he happy? He was miserable. And if they would rather die, they had better do it and decrease the surplus population. This is a brutal example of the character of Scrooge, heartless in the extreme. Not only does he believe that being poor is a crime, he suggests that, well, do you know, at least if they did die, the poor did die, at least it would diminish the problem somewhat. Not really accepting any responsibility for any role he might have in this. What about after his change and redemption? I hope to live a better man. Yes, this is the same person we're talking about. Acknowledgement that the way he had been living simply had to change. I will honour Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I will not shut the lessons you have taught me. Gone is the attitude that Christmas merely gets in the way of making money. Something to be enjoyed, not endured. And how is he feeling about this? A lot happier. I'm as light as a feather. Another simile. Shock horror, he appears to like this new feeling he has, where he is actually happy. And as we're told, he became as good a man as the good old city knew. Altered his reputation from well-known miser to philanthropic hero. Do-gooder, past spreading goodwill wherever he could. Repetition of good there. In that quotation, actually, I think good is mentioned twice more as well. Another key theme, responsibility and social injustice. The treadmill and the poor law are in full vigour then. This is Scrooge's response when asked for a donation to help the poor and destitute of society, the two charitable workers. Dickens was very upset about the condition within society of the poor people. There's a large gap in wealth between the few who controlled the means of production and the wealth, and the masses who had gravitated towards London as part of the Industrial Revolution, but who were living in squalid and destitute conditions. Are there no prisons? Another response to the charity men, highlighting the wealthy's disdain for the poor, suggesting being poor is a crime. Again, look at Dickens' own background and observe, his father was thrown into prison for being in debt. So he has first-hand experience of the suffering involved and the innocent people who suffer. A stale and shriveled hand, like that of age, had pinched and twisted them and pulled them into shreds. Dickens using two wretched children called ignorance and want to represent the poor. Think about the children. Children should be described as being happy and innocent and, full of the joys and possibilities of life, not stale and shriveled, pinched, twisted into shreds. Okay, how do we measure society? Well, one measurement could be how the most vulnerable are treated, and children are amongst the most vulnerable. Mankind was my business. Marley, having learned this lesson too late for him, but tries to impress upon Scrooge that it's not too late for Scrooge. You should be concerned about your fellow man, not just about money and possessions and accruing wealth. His wealth is of no use to him. He don't do any good with it. Dickens implying that the wealthy should do more with their means to help the less well off. Christmas is the only time when people think of people below them as if they really were fellow passengers to the grave and not another race of creatures entirely. A metaphor here highlighting how Fred believes that people should see each other as equals and sees Christmas as an opportunity or an opportune time for this to happen, unlike his uncle in the beginning. Poverty. Brave in ribbons. Remember, the Cratchits represent the poor in society. Mrs. Cratchit uses the ribbon in desperation to try and make her dress look new and respectable for Christmas Day. Many thousands are in want of common necessaries. Highlighting the wider problem in society. Many thousands, it's a big number. Basic needs. Shelter, warmth, food. Many of the poor would rather die than go to the workhouses or the treadmill. Dickens was hypercritical of the workhouses, such horrific conditions that people would rather die than be sent there. A wretched woman with an infant upon a doorstep, emotive example of the desperation and suffering, and how widespread and the innocence of the child involved. Reeked with crime, with filth and misery, describing large swathes of London, not just one little area, but large swathes. And finally, education. Remember Dickens' involvement with the Ragged Schools programme, which aims to give an education to as many poor children as possible. Yellow, meagre, ragged, scowling, wolfish. A warning that things must change if the plight of these children is to improve. This animalistic imagery, emphasising their desperation in an asyndetic list. That's a list of words, adjectives with negative synonyms, with negative connotations even, but without the use of the word and no connectives, just a list. Yellow, meagre, ragged, scowling, wolfish. These shouldn't be words we use to describe children, and yet in Victorian society that's exactly what they were used for. Beware ignorance, for he is doom, and doom has a capital D. Society is doomed unless we educate our children out of poverty. Reference again to the Ragged Schools programme that Dickens got involved with, and his belief that education was the way out of poverty. Okay, so hope you've paused where you needed to and made a note of the quotations and see if you can link them to not just themes but other characters as well. Which characters speak which words and what the intended effect of this is from Dickens' perspective. Okay, hope that's been useful. See you for the next one.